Let me know if you're planning to re-authenticate, because meanwhile I'm starting the class only on YouTube. So I'm going to have my phone next to me, so give me a ring if you manage to do it so I can get it onto Facebook as well. Okay, everyone, good evening. Sorry for this. There's always something. We're about to start the class, but... Oh, we got a sponsor, Yasher Koyach, thank you. I'm about to start the class and I just saw it. So tonight's shir should be dedicated for the birthday of 28th of Iyar, Sima Chana Miriam Bas Chana Bunya. Thank you very much. This is by Bunya Newman. It should be a chus for her daughter for her birthday. Much nachas, and should be a shnas bracha natzlacha, and all the good things should come your way, shidduchim for all your children, all those in need, and only good, wonderful things. Yashakayach to you, and Allah gute Zachen. For those who are waiting for the shir, please give me a moment. I want to start, but I do want to get a little bit of water to keep hydrated. Tonight we are going to learn. You should find the copies on, I hope it's posted on YouTube. The Facebook has not been, I'm having a problem of getting it on. So those of you that are not hearing it on Facebook, I'm going to send a message to you that I hope will somehow reach you even without a direct connection, that you should check YouTube, and it's probably working on YouTube. So again, I'm just going to get some water and I'm ready to start. We're continuing the mimer we started 2 weeks ago, and we learned 2 weeks ago and last week, all about the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tif. Phenomenal stuff. This is from the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe, and we're holding by Lahavin B'Toisves Bir Maimer HaZoyar. No, we're holding over here on page Shin Chaf, Lahavin B'Toisves Bir Be'inyan Maimer Anal. Be back in one moment and we'll get started. Okay, shall we begin? Baruch atah Adino Yeleinu melech ha'olam shehakol niya b'dvarei. That's a shaila. Are you allowed to make the bracha before you fill the cup? That's a good shaila, because when you make a bracha on something, it's supposed to be designated to a certain thing you're going to be eating. Now, once you eat something, as you hold something, you have a bowl of cherries, you take one of them in your hand, you make the blessing, and the blessing goes on that cherry, and then it goes for all the other fruits you're going to eat. So if you're holding a thing of water and you're making a bracha while you're pouring, so you didn't designate yet that first drink, it's a good shaila. Okay. That's the homework for all the listeners to give me the answer on that. If I did right or I did wrong. So we are holding over here Daf Shin Chaf. To understand with added explanation the mimer that we learned earlier, Hamaschel, which begins Tlasa Inan Dezminen Mekodesh, that are three that are invited from Kodesh. I am not going to review because it's too much to review. This is something we've learned. You can watch it on Facebook and on YouTube and on our website at Maayon.com. We spent already close to 6 hours, or maybe over 6 hours, learning this discourse. The Maimer was saying that there are 3 holidays that are invited from Kodesh, or they invite Kodesh. We're going to see that's a discussion over here. And then the Zohar asks what's with Shabbos, and it differentiates that Shabbos is like a child, like a son. He's not like a guest. The other ones are guests. And the idea of it being a guest means that you're taking a weekday which is a regular weekday. For instance, next week, Friday, is a regular weekday. It's a mundane day, and the day becomes holy. That means that the day is elevated, the day itself is elevated to a higher place, where it is infused with Kodesh light, which means it is elevated up to Chachma. That means it's invited to Kodesh. And when it's elevated to Chachma, it is in the Chachma light. And Chachma is where the Or Ein Sof dwells, where Hashem himself dwells. And therefore, that day becomes a holy day. But it's considered like a guest who comes to the table, versus Shabbos, which is not a guest, he's like a child. Because Shabbos, we said, is the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov is that Yom Tov is when it comes out in the weekday, it's regular days of the week. It's, again, I'm just going to give the main idea without the explanation behind it. Yom Tov is the Chitzonius, the external of the Ze'er Anpin, which are the 6 days of Atzilus that come down to create the weekday. And the external part of these days are called weekday. We're going to have a discussion about that today as well. Why it's called Chol, why it's called weekday, as opposed to Shabbos, which Shabbos is the Pnimius of the week. And the Pnimius of the week is holy on itself, meaning the Pnimius of the 6 days, the Shabbos of the weekday, the Shabbos that's there really, the inside, the dimension of Shabbos that's there even during the week, is holy, because it's the Pnimius of Ze'er Anpin. And in the Pnimius of the Midos, we said is Meir, it is shining the power of the Mochen, of Chachma. And that's why, and how do you see that? Because the fact that the Midos are not stuck up on themselves, when the Midos are just pure Midos, when the Midos are just alone, without the influence of the Mochen, of the Chachma, of the Chabad, of the intelligence, then they're lacking bittul, and each one is an island unto its own. Each one is extreme. They become extreme. The midas are extreme, one on each one for themselves, and they don't have a skalalus. They don't have interaction with each other. In order for the midas to become unified, it's only when through the moichen, and that happens only in the pnimius of the midas, and that's why. That's the Shabbos element, the pnimius, the inner element of it. And it's holy. And then on Shabbos, as we're going to see, on Shabbos, that level has an aliyah. It goes up higher. And that's the meaning, like a child who walks into his parents' home. That means he goes up to a place where to Chachma and Bina, and mainly to Chachma, and that's why he's not considered like a guest. It's not like a guest being called. But when a regular Tuesday comes up, it's a weekday. It's a chitzoniistic day. And yet it's invited, like the mashal he gives in the Zohar, is like a king who tells his son, you know what, you're coming, you come to me all the time, one time, bring your buddies with you. So the fact that, and that's why Shabbos is the one that has to bring the Yom Tov. It's an amazing thing, that's why the significance of this Shabbos is that the Shabbos before the Yom Tov is that Shabbos has to bring the Yom Tov into the inside, or else the Yom Tov can't come on its own. It must come along with the Shabbos. Significance to Shabbos before Yom Tov. In any case, but now over here he's going to explain this at greater. His question is going to be, who is invited by who? Is the pirush that Yom Tov is called, the day, the weekday, is invited up to Kodesh, it's invited to the palace? Or is the pirush that it's that Kodesh, which is Chachma, what's the meaning of, we say Shabbos is called Kodesh and Yom Tov is called Mikra Kodesh. It's a calling of Kodesh. So why is it a calling of Kodesh? Because we say that Yom Tov is really Bina, not Chachma. But hidden in Bina, there's a little bit of Chachma. And it's called Mikra Kodesh, the calling of Kodesh into Bina. And then from there, from Bina is called Ema Banim, the mother of the children. It goes into the 7 days of the week. In whichever case Yom Tov falls out, that day is inspired with the Bina energy. That's why it's a day of Simcha, of joy. It's an expansive light of Bina that is now illuminating in this day. But included in the Bina is a droplet of Chachma, and that's the Mikra Kodesh. But according to that, we're drawing Kodesh downward into the day. So which one is it? So he's saying, well, from the Lashon, the Zohar says, Tlasa inon dezminen, there are 3 that are guest that our guest mi kodesh, from holiness, seems to be that the guest is coming from holiness. And that means that holiness, which is chachma, is the guest. So it would seem that it's a flow. In Yom Tiv, you have a tidbit of kodesh light that's going down. That means kodesh is the guest that's coming to us. The simple meaning of the maimer is the pidush des minen mi kodesh, that it is minen, it is invited from kodesh. Not that they are called bezimun in zimun legabe kodesh, that they are called to be invited to kodesh. El kodesh nikra v'nimshach aleim. Kodesh is being called to them. That's the meaning. Zeminin, the guests are coming. Mi kodesh is coming a guest. V'hi apia now, and this fits with something that was mentioned earlier. The ikar yontiv ubchenes oir ema. The main inyan of yontiv is mayadim lesimcha. It's really an energy of bina, which is the lights of mother. Ema banim semecha. That's where simcha comes from bina. Like we learned that when you understand something, comprehend something, you'll get simcha. It's the expansion of something, which causes the expansion of the emotions, which is the simcha. But v'oir abba nimshach be'ema b'bchenas helam. Inside of it is mikra kodesh. You're also calling the element of pleasure, the element of kodesh, the element of chachma is also there. It's there in a concealed sense, and that's why it's considered a guest. V'alkei nikra mikra kodesh. It's a calling of kodesh. Ta'inishah kodesh nikra sham. Kodesh is being called. Ube'emes, but he says in truth, ef shaloi mekain. You can't say so. Al derech hapashat gam kain. You can't learn that the content of Yom Tiv is that we have regular weekdays down here, and we're calling Kodesh down. We can't say that. Because the example the Zohar is giving is of inviting guest. So when you're inviting guest, the host doesn't go to the guest's house. The guests are going to the host. That's the idea. So if we're saying that the Yom Tovim are the guest, it's the weekdays that are now the guest, and it's comparing them. Shabbos is the child. That means that the weekdays are the guest. That means that they're being called to the palace. The idea of invitation is Elosha Yikru Esa Orchim. You're calling, when you're told to be a guest, it means that you're calling the guest Lebeis Hamazmin, to the house of the one who's inviting. It's not that the inviter it goes to them. I mean, you could do that. You're inviting yourself over, but that's not the meaning of general meaning of a guest. V'gam, and also in the Alderech Hadrush Medivir Razal. That's pshat on the simple level. But also, if you're looking at what Chazal say regarding Eina Inyan Kain, it's not so. Shrei Yedua Midrash Rabbi Akiva. It is known the Medrash of Rabbi Akiva. Shadarish al Pasuk, the expounding of Rabbi Akiva on the Pasuk. Eila Mayadei Hashem. These are the Yomim Tovim of God. Ashatikru Osam, that you should call them. So Rabbi Akiva darshans the word Osam, and he switches the word Osam, and he says it's because it's spelled without a vav. So it could be spelled as if it says Atem. Ashatikru Atem. You should call them. Simply Ashatikru Osam, you should call them. Ashatikru Atem means that Atem is referring to the Jewish people. Not you're calling the days, Osam, you're calling the holidays. Ashatikru Atem, that you Yidden, you should call them. Atem, and when we learn out from here, that you're the one who makes the holiday. What does it mean, you're the one who makes the holiday? It's completely dependent, Rabbi Akiva says, on the Jewish people. That means that if the Jewish people call a day a holiday, that day becomes a holiday. And if they make a mistake, not any Jew can do this, but the Beis Din, the court, the high court, can make they base on whatever calculations they make, and it comes out that so-and-so is supposed to be the Yom Tiv, and they go and they make that and they call it. Now what happens if they made a mistake? So the wrong day, even though it's a mistake, even though it's not according to the way things truly are, it wasn't supposed to be Yom Tiv. But once they made a mistake, this is it. The day that was not supposed to be Yom Tiv is Yom Tiv. And later he's going to talk about this. Atem afilu shoygigim, even if you made an error. Afilu anusim, even if they made an oinus, in other words, it was a complete accidental call. Yet, the other day becomes Yom Tov. So that means it's completely dependent on you. Im came, what do you see from here? Al Yikri al Yedei Yisroel is that the Yidden are the ones who are doing the call. Who's the calling? Jews are the Yidden. The Jews are the ones who are calling. Now, when you're calling, what does it mean? You call. You're calling someone from far. If the person is right next to you, you don't call. You speak to him. Calling means you call someone. Someone who's distant. Now, Yidden are holy entity. So it's a holy entity. What does that mean? They are members of the palace. And if they're calling someone who's far from the palace. If the calling would mean that you're calling holiness, holiness is always in the palace. It's God's palace. Holiness, this is His home. Whose holiness? Holiness is the Orein Seif who lives in Chachma Vatzilus. This is His home. He's there. You're not calling Him from a distance. If it's calling the Yom Tiv, if it's calling the weekday and elevating it to the palace, that makes sense that you're calling someone that's far, as he says. So v'tzarichim sheyikru lemisha rachak, to someone who's far, v'loy lemisha karev beheichel hamelech tamid, not to someone who's always close in the palace of the king. V'al derech mashal hakoyre lo'orchim, by way which is like someone calling guest. Canal, as we said earlier. So what is he really seeing from this medrash of Rabbi Akiva? That the idea of Mikra Kodesh is that we are announcing holiness and calling someone, and who is calling someone? A member of the palace. So you have to say that this is a call to someone who's outside of the palace. I'm calling you to come on over. So this is another indication that the guest, the one that's being called, is not Kodesh, but it's the Choyel, it's the weekday that's being called to Kodesh. The Pirush Amiti, the real Pirush, Bizaminen Mi Kodesh, that they are invited, the Bizaminen Mi Kodesh, guest from Kodesh, is that the reason that was, what was causing the confusion is one letter. It's the letter Mem. It says Mi Kodesh. From Kodesh. If you're saying it's from Kodesh, it's implying that the guest is coming from Kodesh. There's a meaning. You're inviting Mi Kodesh from Kodesh. But he says that's not the way you're supposed to read it over here. Someone is being invited to Kodesh. Because if it would mean that other people are being, that the guest, that we're dealing with guests that are going to Kodesh, then it should have said, Zeminen, they've been invited La Kodesh. They've been invited to the palace, to holiness. It says Mikodesh implies from the Mem, that's tricky. So he says, but it's not a question. Because in order to be a guest, you first have to have received an invitation. So Zeminon doesn't mean guest. Zeminon means invited. So the pasuk, so the Gezor is saying there are three that have received an invitation, mi kodesh, from kodesh. That means that kodesh first extends an invitation. That's why it says from, because first you received an invite from kodesh, and then you travel to be the guest la kodesh, to kodesh. But really, we're dealing with the elevation of the weekday to the palace, to kodesh. That's what he says, the meaning. Shehem nikrayim ela kodesh. They are being called to the kodesh. Kedugmas orchim, similar to guest. Shel nikrayim, they're being called el beis hamazminam, to the one who is to the house, to the host's home. Keniskalia. Umasha Omar. If so, why does he say does it mean in mikodesh, from holy? The Hevel Mema does it mean in la kodesh? They're being invited le kodesh, to kodesh. And you know the idea is, here we're talking about prior to them coming. It's an invite that they receive from Kodesh. Because the supernal level of Kodesh, which is Chachma, sends them first an invite, lahazminam. Yom Tiv doesn't just start on Yom Tiv. Yom Tiv starts before Yom Tiv. Is that they receive a week or two before Yom Tiv, a certain day of the week, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Friday, whatever, a Sunday, a weekday, Bing gets a message, gets an SMS from Kodesh, you're invited to the palace. We'll soon see who is the courier, who is the one who does that invitation. The royal announcer, the one who sends that invitation. The Fishebchinas Kodesh Elyon Sheleach Aleim Betchila sends them a message, lahazminam, to invite them, sheyavoyu elav, they should come to him. Va'avo, and this coming, zochi aliyasa mulmata lamayla. This is their elevation, mulmata lamayla, from the bottom up, they're invited. The Yuvendova said this thing will be understood up in Mashal. This will be understood by way of an analogy, b'melech, from a king. Shemazmin l'sarav l'mishta hasuda sha'as. I'm going to explain what is this meaning that the weekday is. First of all, we just learned last week in the previous year that the weekdays, we're not talking about just ordinary mundanity. We're talking about who's being invited. The pneumius of the day is being invited. Who's the pneumius of the day? The godly energy that's creating the day, that's creating time and space, which is too godly energy. It's a divine power. But we learned that once it descends through the parsa, through the partition that separates between Atzilos, between the world of emanation that's still godly, and the three lower worlds, Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, then it's already it's a diminishment of its divinity. It becomes already severely downgraded. So much so that, as we learned last week, it's considered as if it's being enlivened through a shliach, through an emissary. It's not even anymore considered a continuation of godliness. That we know there's malach and malach metatroin, so that are in charge of the natural world, even though they're completely compliant to God and they have no power at all. But still, it's like someone else. But who is it really? The pneumius. It's really the 6 days, or the 6 emotions. Sheishes Yamim Asa Hashem, right? So these are divine, godly powers. So what does it mean they're invited to Hashem? So he says they're considered like ministers. And when a minister is invited, a minister has a lot of power. He could be a big governor. And now it's coming out that governors have power. They can force an entire, city, an entire state to shut down. No one can go to work. There's big power. We don't always realize how much power the governor has unless we come to such times of crisis where we really see the power of a governor. And no one can do anything. You can hack your head, you can clap your head in the wall. You can't go to work. You don't have money to feed your family. Can't go. The governor doesn't let. No permission. He's the boss. So he can be a big knacker. But as much as he's a knacker, he doesn't come close to the king or the president. Has power over the governors. Okay? In a president situation, in the way the structure in the United States is that the federal government doesn't necessarily have full overriding power in all particular elements of local government. It doesn't. But when you had a monarchy and a true king, the king has, because the whole power of the governorship is not independent from the king. The king appoints the governor, not like it is over here in a democracy where the people, through a process of election, elect their governor, so the governor has kind of independent power from the king. But where there was a king, where the king appointed the governors, then the king had complete power over them. So even though the governor is a ganzer macher and a whole knacker, but in front of the king, he's a nobody. And therefore, if the king invites him to the palace, that's considered, and he shows him closeness and so on, that's considered a great elevation to the governor. That's what he's going to explain over there. There is no comparison to the ministers and Mamelech with the king. The king is completely separated and exalted incomparably and completely above them. And even though these are big ministers, and they might have a lot of governorship, in whichever province that they are the governor over, But really, all these provinces belong to the king, like it says by Achashverosh, Sheva v'Yasra Me'ah Medina. Even every Medina, every province had its own governor, but still, he was the king over all of them. And their governorship and their powers all stemming from the king. Va'al shel melech, two things. Their power they're receiving is from the king to govern, and also they are governing over something that belongs to the king, because the entire kingdom belongs to the king. So they don't have any quality, mibilti hamelech, which is not from the king. So their entire authority and strength of their signature, or whatever it is, it's all the king's power of governorship that's being given to them. So we can understand that they're like a tiny little flame next to a big blaze of fire. Nevertheless, when they are sitting in their own governor's office, in their own governor's palace, whatever, they're considered the ministering beings, ministers or governing ministers. Even though their power is based on the authority of the king, when they are in their own hometown or in their own provinces, they're the boss. However, when they come in front of the king, then their greatness or their importance doesn't have any significance at all, because they can be dethroned in an instant, because the king has all the power. And they're simple servants in front of him. When the king wants to elevate them and to exalt them, show them honor, Yikra, he invites them. Like it says by Achashverosh, that he made a party to who? The first party for 180 days. This was only to the governors and the ministers and the mayor, whoever was all the authoritative figures. They were the ones that were invited. But Yikra v'yazmen oisam l'mishta. Then he invites them to a party, the suda and a meal, sheyasa b'shvilam, and a royal feast that he makes for them. V'azai then b'zoisa kriya v'azmana, with this invite. This is considered the fact that they're invited. This itself is something to be proud of, something to show others. Like, look, I was invited. Yis'alu be'ilu, like Haman says. Look, I'm the only one being invited. The fact that they're invited to this, it's an exclusive club. Yis'alu be'ilu gadol. This elevates them to a very high status from what they were before. And this invite elevates them and gives them greater prestige than their appointed governorship when they are in their place, because they're being honored by the source who has all the power, as opposed to having power just over here. That's the idea. They're being recognized even in a place where no one should be recognized, yet they're being given recognition. So that elevates their prestige in a big way. Because they're coming into the palace of the king inside. And then they're called Oichlei Shulchan HaMelech, those that are eating at the shulchan, at the table of the king. And this is considered let me see if I was able to fix the Facebook 1 second. Okay, so the Facebook is not working. All right, let's continue. And this is considered a great aliyah to be called the people of the king. To be called from the king's people is considered more prestige than being the ruler over the peasants, over being a ruler over the common people. This is it's aristocratic situation. Ikidu as it is known. And this can also apply to status above as well. In the 6 days of the week, that descend and flow downward into Bria Tzir and Asiya Lachris Ruch Shvalim, to enliven when the 6 days of the week they are the governors, go down to enliven. Okay, big, powerful entity that has governorship over myriads of worlds, of planets, and still it's considered it's prestigious, but it's still who are you powerful? Who is your power over? Over creations. Ruach Shvalim, the spirit of the lowly, Kniskliel. And even though and even though down over here, they demand and call for lots of respect because they're called Sarim El Yoinim, they're called supernal ministers, like the Malach Metatroin. From all the angels, he's like the big angel. He's considered the minister of the world, Bichlal. And he's got millions of other authoritative figures that work for him. Now that he's an important minister. And when these governing powers have not descended yet, but they're in their source in Atzilus, they're so much more powerful. When they're higher up in the world of Atzilus, before they descended downward, each on this level in Atzilus, each one memuna is appointed to enliven myriads and myriads, millions or billions of worlds. It's mind-boggling. But yet, when they're invited to God's table himself, to the Eibishter himself, to the Orein Sof, to Chachma, that's beyond all, where the whole process of myriads of worlds, it's all starting in the 6 emotions, 6 days of the week, which is the source of the 6 directions, time and space, where within the context where all these worlds are taking place. But then there is the infinite one, and all that, the light is not infinite anymore. It's not present. But to go all the way up, to be invited in front of the Orein Sof, is come to the superhead, to the Eibishter himself. That's called a very, very great elevation for them. When they're elevated in front of the essence of the emanator, which he is separated and elevated. Be'erech means, in the sense, absolutely. Mikol ishtalshlos, from the entire progression of worlds. The Abiyah of the 4 worlds, Atzilus, Bri, Yatzir, and Asiya, Kidu as it is known. K'moy b'yomtiv, and when are they elevated? K'moy b'yomtiv, when one of these ministers, which is one of the 6 days, which is, let's say, Tuesday, that's being called, or in this case, coming up next week, Friday, that's going to be called to become to the king's table. It's the elevation of the days of the Ze'er Anpin. This is a very great ascent. It's such a great ascent, it's like coming from a deep pit to a very high roof top. It's incomparably this elevation. It's incredible how much higher they're going. The Hagam, that even though Shechesed, Shem Keil Dechol Hayoim, the Chesed, the power of Chesed, which is the power of Sunday, and he's using the term Chesed Keil Kol Hayoim, but he adds the word Shem. Shem Keil, the Kol Hayoim of all, which says Chesed Keil, which is an incredible power. Beyoim Aleph, on Sundays, Mashpi Alamata, it's what influences below, the Nikra Sar, and it's called a great minister. But when it's elevated in front of the King of all kings, when it's elevated in front of the Orein Sof that's in Chachma, Hanikra Kodesh, who's called Kodesh, this would be compared, analogous to Shenikra Orchem the Beis HaMelech. It's like the guests that are being called to the house of the king. This is considered a great elevation to these guests, that they can feast at the royal table. And this is the meaning, the zeminen mikodesh. They're invited from Kodesh. Shenizmanu, they were invited, v'nikru, and they were called Lavoi lebchinas Kodesh Elyon, to come before the supernal holiness. Liyois nechshavim lebchinas Kodesh gam heim, that they as well should be considered from the level of Kodesh. Begilui oirein soif aleim kamoi bekodesh. With the revel, and what does it mean that they're called to Kodesh? That means that the Or Ein Sof, that God Himself, the Or Ein Sof, the Infinite One, blessed is He as He is in all of His infinity, will bestow Himself or His light upon them, as it is in Chachma. Usually, this light, this revelation, is only in Chachma. Now it will be extended to them as well because they're eating at the table of Chachma. And that's why it's called Mikra Kodesh. Shenikru. It means that they were called Liyos B'Pchinas Kodesh, that they should become elevated into the holiness of Kodesh. V'zeu shehim shalom malka, and that's why it's compared to the king, the Hevelei Bra, the king that have a child, that's Shabbos. And Shabbos brings its guest along. V'shoshvinen heima, and these are the guests of the son, Mikra'ei Kodesh, called to Kodesh. U'malka mishkanoi B'Pchinas Kodesh. And the king dwells in Kodesh, that's the Or Ein Sof, who is calling his son together with, which is Shabbos, together with, but Shabbos is naturally connected to this place, and which is the Pnimius of the Zeir Anpin, because we said before, the Or Ein Sof is Nimshach there all the time, and then the Chitzonius of it, the external parts, they're not privy to the Or Ein Sof. The Or Ein Sof is not illuminating in them in the individual midos. But besides, when a weekday is being invited to Kodesh, because in the lights of Abba, the lights of Father, which is Kodesh, over there is dwelling the Or Ein Sof. The ein eslapshus Or Ein Sof ela b'chachma dafka, because the eslapshus, direct contact with the Or Ein Sof, is only in Chachma, as stated elsewhere in Tanya, where he explains why only in Chachma, because Chachma is the epitome of Bittul, and only over there can the Or Ein Sof dwell. Good. But what does it mean? This is the meaning of the actual invite. They're being hosted by Kodesh, fine. But what does it mean that before that they need to receive an invitation? Now, an invitation means they're still in their own place, and the invite is being sent to them where they are, and that's informing them to come. And someone is sending it. So this is what he's going to explain over here. Mash Omad doesn't mean in Kodesh. The Kodesh shaleach aleim lazminam betchila, that Kodesh sends to them first a message to invite them. So chulu dehine hashluchim heim Yisroel dafka. The Jewish people, they're the ones who take the day and make that day and invite that day into holiness. And as stated in the words of the sages, which we mentioned earlier, Yisroel, we didn't mention this earlier, we mentioned this actually in the beginning of the Maayon 2 weeks ago. Yisroel de kachinu lizmanim. The Jewish people are the ones that sanctify the times. We are the agents that sanctify the time. Like it says, this is what we mentioned earlier today. These are the Yamim Tovim of God that you should call them, and the emphasis is that you should call them. It means you make them, and we change the word Oisam as if it would be read Atem. You're the ones who are the whole power of this holiness. Atem Daik. Rabbi Akiva, like Rabbi Akiva Darshans, Atem, and so much so you have control over the whole thing. God says to the Jewish people that are filushagim, even if accidentally or by mistake, you make it by mistake or accidentally, it still applies. There seems to be a great wonder. This seems to be very hard to understand, that we should make sense out of this. How could it be that the sanctification of Yom Tov should be completely given over to the high court? They wait until they get witnesses who see the new moon, and once they have that thing, they're the ones who say, the Belz doesn't say that day is Yom Tov. Belz says which day is Rosh Chodesh. And based on how Belz decides which day is Rosh Chodesh, based on that, it's going to fall out the Yom Tov. Pesach, for instance, is said that it has to be on the 15th day of the month of Nisan. So it depends on when we set the calendar of when Chodesh Nisan starts. Who's going to decide that? That's given over to the Jewish people. But because if they will make a mistake, the Yekatchu l'Chag Pesach, and they're going to sanctify the Yom Tov of Pesach, b'moyed on Yom Tov, b'gimel yamim achar zmanai. They're going to make a mistake 3 days later, after it was supposed to be. Yom Tov was supposed to fall out on a Sunday, and they're going to make it on Wednesday or on Tuesday, whatever. Haroi lefiya emes, according to what it was supposed to be. Im came ba'oisa hazman, shoyiroi liyas yoim l'roi liyoim chol, a day that was fitting, that was supposed to be a regular weekday, this alois is now going to be elevated be'ilu oiris, the opposite. The time that was supposed to be the day of Chol, Sunday, the day that was really supposed to be, if they would have done the correct sanctification of Rosh Chodesh, then Sunday would have been Yom Tov. That day that was supposed to be a weekday, which was supposed to be called up, it was according to the way the truth would have been. This day was designated lis alois be'ilu oiris the Abba ve'ima, to be elevated all the way up to the table, as we spoke earlier, to the lights of Chachma and Bina, B'Bchinas Kodesh, into the holy, all the way into holiness. That day will remain an ordinary day. Hoyachol Gomer, that day will remain a regular weekday, so much so that that no one has any obligation on that you can eat chametz, the day that its holiness would have called for, that if you eat chas v'shalom chametz, then the person could be punished with kares, God forbid, with excision. And yet that day, it's nothing. It's a regular. If you work on it, no violation of anything. It's lechel chametz. If you ate chametz that day, it's completely a weekday. It's permitted. 3 days later, shu be'emes yom chol, which really should be weekday, nasa yom kodesh becomes a holy day. B'bchinas aliyas to Abba ve'ima, and it goes up into the holiness, and therefore it carries within itself all the laws of Yom Tov. Ve'eich Omar, and how is it that it says atam afilim muton, even if you made a mistake? Ach, Inyan, who the idea is, mishimda Sanhedrin nikro einei ha'eda. That is because of the unique connection of the Jewish people in general and the Sanhedrin amongst the Jewish people, the eyes of the Jewish people, which are the Sanhedrin. They're called the eyes of the Jewish people. And here we see that they're called because we know that all the Jewish people are really one entity, one soul. And it makes up, and the 600,000 souls make up different parts of that human. So the Sanhedrin are called the eyes. How do we see that? There's a pasuk, like it says, if from the eyes of the assembly, they will make a mistake. That's what it says in Parshas Vayikra, somewhere over there. Talking about when Sanhedrin makes a mistake in Halach. But it calls them the eyes of the Eda. So according to Chassidus, it's not stam. We call them the eyes because they're overseeing everything. No, they're truly the eyes of the Jewish people. We know that vision is associated with the power of Chachma. Hearing is connected to the power of Bina, and Riyah is connected with Chachma. Shaharei Nikru b'Shem Chachmei Yisroel. They are called the Chachamim of the Jewish people. Now, if they're called Chachma of the Jewish people, so let's first see who the Jewish people are spiritually. Spiritually, the Jewish people are rooted in their final manifestation. I'm not talking in the source of sources of sources, but the neshamas, as we've already formulated as souls, our source is in Malchus of Atzilus. That's the source of Israel, the source of the Jewish people. So if we're saying that amongst the Jewish people, these are the Chachamim, this means that these are the Einei Ha'eda. It means this is the level within Malchus, this is the Chachma of Malchus. Because we know that Malchus is an entire part, so if it's an entire configuration, it has all the spheres, so it also has Chachma Shebe Malchus. So the Yidden are Chachma Shebe Malchus. Shoirish Klalas Nishmas Yisrael Kiyudua, which Malchus of Atzilus is the shorish of the Jewish people. And these are the eyes of Chachma. And the Chachma of Malchus has a special connection to Chachma of Atzilus. Even though Chachma of Atzilus is the first sphera, is the highest of all the 10 spheres, and Malchus of Atzilus is the lowest, and therefore Chachma Sheba Malchus is still part of the lowest sphera, of the most limited of all the spheres, of all the attribute. Yet, dafka, because it's the lowest, it's connected to the highest. Because of the rule, not tchilas and besoif, from the beginning is wedged in the end, and the end in the beginning. And Abba Yasad Brata and Chachma is the foundation of the daughter. And particularly, the Chachma of the daughter of Malchus is particularly connected to Chachma of Atzilus. And therefore, the Sanhedrin, who they are the Einei Ha'eda, they are the Chachamim of the Jewish people, the eyes of the Jewish people, which Riyah is Chachma, are particularly connected to Chachma of Atzilus, to the level of Kodesh, and therefore they're the ones who can deliver an invitation from Kodesh to a weekday, to any other, to the Chitzonius of the 6 days of the week, which later manifest as weekday, as the mundane days of the week, and invite them to Kodesh because they have a deeper connection to Chachma than the 6 days, even of the Ze'er Anpin, which Ze'er Anpin is higher than Malchus, but because they're Chachma of Malchus, and Chachma has a relationship to the first level of Chachma of Atzilus, because they enjoy that connection, they have that ability to extend that they could channel the energy of Chachma to be the ones who deliver the invite and to elevate. It is known the rule all over. The B'chinas Chachma, the Nukva, the Chachma of Malchus, of Nukva, B'toicha, in her, Yesh Gam Mibchinas Chachmila. It has vested within it from the higher Chachma. Hanikra Oyer Abba, which is called, like we see Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh. The Torah Shebal Peh is the Chachma of Malchus. And in every law of Torah Shebal Peh, you ask, Menahana Mili, where is this, what's the source in Torah Shebeksav? What's Torah Shebeksav, the written Torah? That's Chachma Vatzilus. That means that in every element of Chachma of Malchus lies embedded in it Chachma Vatzilus. Anikra Oirab, which is called the light of Abba. Kamaimer Baal Sefer Yetzirah, as it says in Sefer Yetzirah, as the author of Sefer Yetzirah says, Chachma Barosh, there is Chachma at the beginning, v'Chachma Besof, and there's Chachma at the end. Chachma Barosh, Chachma Besof. Chachma at the beginning, Chachma at the end. And that means in the beginning of Atzilus you have Chachma, and then you have, in many inyanim, Malchus reflects the inyanim of Chachma. That's a klal gadol, a general rule that there is in Kabbalah and in Chassidus. V'nikra b'Zoyar, and that's why in Zohar it's referred to these two levels of Chachma, which are really one, Chachma Yalah, the supernal Chachma, v'Chachma Tata, and the lower Chachma, the Chachma of Malchus. Mishum denot soifam b'tchilasam, because the beginning is wedged in the end, as mentioned above. The imkain, and therefore, are yesh b'Sanhedrin shenikrein. Now these neshamas, holy neshamas, of the Chachamim of the Eden. Now, by the way, these are not just regular people. We're soon going to see, and not in today's, maybe we're going to get to it today as well, that they're born from Atzilus in a very unique yichud, that the Chachma element is very dominant. We're going to see later that there are certain yichudim that take place between Ze'er Anpin and Malchus, which masculine and feminine, which is what is needed to create neshamas. That there is a yichud that's on a much lower level. That's called the yichud of the weekday, and that's what creates and brings neshamas into the world. But which neshamas? Ordinary people, which don't have this powerful luminance of chachma in their soul, and these are the hamoinah. This is the regular Jewish population, and then there are the special talmidei chachamim and special tzaddikim and holy neshamas, like we sometimes encounter, like these great people that have, you can see when you meet them that they have a whole different perspective, a whole different reality, a whole different energy, a whole different, they're tzaddikim, and they have a knack for bittul, and their bittul to Hashem is on levels beyond the ordinary, and that's because they have a much greater dosage of chachma, and they come from a higher yichud. They come from the yichud, a pnimius, the yichud of Za and Malchus, It takes place on Friday night, this deeper yichud, and it produces this deeper neshamas. That's why we also know in general that people that want to have holy neshamas for their children, they should try to make, if they're planning that it should really result in a pregnancy, there's a big inyan to make sure it's only from a zivuk that takes place Friday night, because that's tuning in. Then you're synchronizing with a much deeper yichud, which will be zeicha, not necessarily always, but one can luck out that they should have a child from these very, very lofty souls. But al komponim, the Sanhedrin, their neshamas that contain this element of chachma, even when they come down in bodies down here, and while they're in physical bodies, they can command the cosmos. They can decide based on what they, but how do they decide it? Based on Riyah, because that's the power of chachma. So that's why it's through their vision. They have to accept eidos, witnesses. The witnesses are the ones who see, but they bring their vision to the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin process it through their Riyah, and based on that, the Sanhedrin decide when it's going to be Yom Tov, which means they're the ones who send the invite from Chachma to the regular weekday and invite. And even if they're making a mistake, they have the power to deliver that energy, even if it wasn't meant to be, because of that power in Chachma. That's what he's developing over here. That's why it is in the Sanhedrin. They're called the eyes of the assembly. From Chachma, the lights of Abba, of Chachma itself, of the lights of the Father itself. Of course, this is all in a microscopic, but they have something of it. They have of the essential DNA of Chachma, of Atzilus, of Kodesh, and that's the reason that they have the power to sanctify, al pi ariyah, based on vision, even if they're miyut, even if they're making a mistake in his kliya. Because it's in their capabilities, because they are rooted in the supernal thought of the lights of Abba, liyas kamoihu mamish. They can be literally like Chachma Vatzilus. That's the power of the tzaddik. And when he tells you what it means a nasi hador, they're literally like Chachma Vatzilus, where the Oir Ein Sof dwells in it. They have that power. Kaniskaliyahu bepirish hamashal, in the example of the mashal, the brada ala beise, like a child that goes into the house. A child has the brains of the father, and that's the same applies also to the Sanhedrin. They're talking about Shabbos, but it's the same idea. The Sanhedrin, they come from the Pnimiyas, they have that power. That we don't have any emissary, any agent that can invite the three Yomim Tovim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. What does it mean to invite them? It means to take a weekday, an ordinary day, and invite it into holiness. Eli Yisroel Bolvad. Only the Jewish people can act as that agent. Like it says, Asher Tikru Atem. It's like the prince. You're the ones who will do it. Dafka. This is the rule everywhere. The shluchai shel adam kamoisai mamish. To be a shliach, it has to be shluchai shel adam kamoisai. It has to be someone who can be like you. That's why in halachas of shlichus, the law is that you can't make a non-Jewish shliach. An emissary. It doesn't have it. Atem, it's a lashon over there, Chazal learning out from Truma. Kain tarumu gam atem. It's only someone who's like you, and that's another Jew. You can make an agent. You can give him power of eternity. You can make him a shliach for something. If it's not, so now we understand, because to be kimoisai, you have to have. So another Jew has an neshama, so you can be your shliach. And the same is bechlal. A yid can be a shliach of the Eibishter, and that's who we all are. We're all shluchim of the Eibishter to illuminate the world. And what does it mean to be a shliach of the Eibishter? It means a shliach, an emissary of God, means that you literally like him. You're in his place. That's awesome. So, and that's in everything that we're shluchim for the Eibishter to do a mitzvah. We're his shluchim in this world, to execute something for him, on behalf of him, and it's literally as if God is doing it. Shem is putting on tefillin through us. But that's in general. But on a very higher and a much greater and a more expansive, all-inclusive way, is when the Sanhedrin are doing it, because of their within the Jewish people themselves. They are from the Chachma element, and Chachma is directly plugged into Kodesh Elyon, where the Orin Seif dwells. So by them it's magnified a gazillion times. The Shlucha Shel Adam Kamoisei Mamish. Ki HaShliach Makabel Advarim, because the Shliach receives whatever it takes, the things, Kamoisha Hembe Mishalchei Mamish, literally as it is in the one who's sending them. The Alkein HaShliach Nechshav Kemishaleach. The Shliach is considered like the Mishaleach Mamish, literally B'chol Hadinim, in all halachas, in all halacha, in all halachic criteria, the Shliach is like the Mishaleach. And the Sanhedrin, therefore, are the Shluchim of the Eibishter to invite the weekday. That's why the halacha is all over. The Shlucha Shel Adam Kamoisei. The Shliach of a person is literally like him. This idea, by the way, the Alter Rebbe discusses also in a Maimer we once learned it. In the beginning, the first Maimer in Parshas Vayikra in Lakutei Torah, and the Alter, when he talks Vayikra El Moshe, the calling of Moshe, that calling is like an invite. He invited Moshe to come inside. There he brings this whole idea of who's the one who's calling, that the calling has to be Kamoisei Mamish. Shluchei Shel Adam Kamoisei. The Rebbe always brings this idea to tell us that a Jew is Shluchei Shel Adam Kamoisei de Mishaleach Mamish, that a Yid is literally, and he brings it from the Lakutei Torah, which is the same idea, but actually over here it's even discussed at a greater length than over there. Negam Bekan over here as well. Since the Yomim Tovim that essentially are from the lights of Mother, B'chines Hazmana, which is not Kodesh, as we said, Bina is external compared to Chachma, and they need to be Mikra Kodesh, to be called into Kodesh, infinitely higher into the Orin Soif, B'chines Hazmana, they need to be invited. V'kriya, an invitation, K'nis Kalel, Im Kein Tzarech Li Shliach, there needs to be a Shliach, Sheyelech Achareim, should go to them, Al Derech Mashal, V'yazminim. The king himself doesn't leave the palace. See, he's sending his prince, his son, who will go out to call him. V'ashliach, and that's what we are in this world, where we descend into the lower world. V'ashliach b'hechrech she'yeh be'erech ha'mishaleach. And the shliach, the agent, has to have an equivalence to the one who's sending it. Ki shlucha shel adam kamoiseh, because the shliach of a person is like him. Im kein l'chayra, who is the one who can compare to God? Asher yishtave be'erech, that should be able to be equivalent, l'b'chines kodesh elyon, to the supernal holiness, sheyeh shliach b'davar, that he should be the shliach. Who can do this? V'gam movin, achash hashliach be'erech ha'mishaleach. It's also understood that since the shliach is equivalent and similar to the mishaleach, bevadai gevoya harbe, he has to definitely be much higher than misha nishlach elo, to the one that is being sent to. So, ki hashliach b'chines memutza, the shliach is a memutza, is acting as a medium, as a mediator, bein ha-mishaleach, between the one that's sending, the misha nishlach elo, to the one that he's being sent to. Asher al kain, and therefore lo yashluchim lahazmim lamayadei avaya. So who are the shluchim that can invite the Yom Tov in? Lamayadei avaya, the invitees of avaya, to the ones who are being invited, who is going to be the shliach hanal. There's no one that can do it. No one other than a neshama. No other being, not a malach, not a... even the external elements of the spheres can't do it. Only the pneumius of the pneumius. And who's the pneumius? The neshama of everything, and that's neshamas. These are the neshamas. Came up the Sanhedrin, only the Sanhedrin, Einei Ha'eda, the eyes of the assembly. Mitzat Sharsham ba'or Abba Atzmoi, is because they're rooted in the lights of Chachma itself. That's why they can be the agents for this inyan. V'shluchai shel adam kamoisai, and the shliach of a person is like himself. Ugavoyim harbe memisha nishlach elav, and they are much higher than the one that they have been sent. And this will also explain the Maila. Now we get an understanding of the power of Nishmas Yisroel, the souls of the Jewish people, and not only that, and especially the souls of the tzaddikim. And that's why we find Gam B'Tanoim V'Amarayim, based on the idea now that we just said, that neshamis are higher than the Yomim Tovim. And that's why they can make the Yom Tovs. And what are the Yom Tovim? The Yom Tovim are weekdays, which are, if we trace it back to the Shoresh, it's the 6 divine emotions. It's incredible. That's the weekdays, as they're manifesting lower. But even when they're in Atzilus, they're in a lower state. They're in a state of chitzonius of the Zeir Anpin, the emotions themselves, when they're not in a state of Ma, when they're not in a state of Iskalos called Havaya, when each one is standing individually, which are the 6 days, they're lower than the Neshamas in that sense. And where do they come from? What's the source of the 6 emotions? From Emor, from Bina, which means that the shirish of neshamas that can invite the 6 days, which are root, is that they're higher even than Emor, than mother. And that's because the neshamas are mushrash and abba and father and chachma. This idea that neshamas are higher even than bina, as they're rooted in chachma, will also explain another idea of why tzaddikim have complete dominion over teva, over the world. And they can manipulate the world and change it and reorganize things the way they like it. Like we find that the tzaddikim are able to do whatever, if they're not happy with the way nature is set up, they changed it. Like we know of all the miracles that tzaddikim have done. And it's not like they daven to Hashem and Hashem does the miracle. The tzaddikim themselves do it. They're sitting, it's as if they're in the control tower. And how do the Eibishter set up the system? This is God's system. How do they manipulate it? How do they change it? And that's because the systems, the teva, is starting already in the world of words. How does God set up the world? Through words. And words, if you trace them to their origins, is in Bina. Bina is the beginning of thoughts. That's where you have thoughts, and that's where the organization of thoughts, which is the divine code, the underlying divine code, genetic code of existence that literally organizes all features of the natural order, right? Of everything. It's all based on the code, which originates in Bina. So those who are rooted in Chachma can change the code. And that's what he's explaining here. We find by the great rabbis of the Mishnah, the Tanoim, Amoraim, and the rabbis of the Gemara. He's talking about them, but it all applies to the Chassidic Rabbeim as well, the Baal Shem Tov and all the Tzaddikim, and the Rebbe. Based on nature, the person was supposed to die. He's very sick, and the Rebbe just switched in one word. And they come and take tests, nothing is there. Switches, a hurricane is supposed to hit Miami, and it's not going to be, and changes the whole weather system. Like tzaddikim, they're in charge over everything. Tzaddikim are able to do miracles. Whatever they needed. Because chachma is really the real root energy of everything is chachma. Chachma is the power of, that's the yud, that's the point of energy. But the formations and the way things are designed comes from bina. So Chachma is still pre-designed. V'chol tzerufei oisius, and all the combinations of letters shenivru be'em shamayim va'aretz, that heaven and earth are created from them. V'chol ha'olamais, and all the worlds, shar shamu mebchinas hei gavurais. It's all rooted in the letters, the 22 letters of the Aleph Beis, Basarim Amaris, and the 10 utterances which are made up of all these letters of the Aleph Beis. The world was created. And they all trace their way back to the 5 utterances of the mouth, the 5 gevuros, the 5 powers of gevura, which are associated with the 5 organs of speech, which are related to the 5 letters mem, menatzbach. In the Aleph Beis, you have 22 letters, and then you have 5 letters that are double letters. And those letters, we are at the end letters, and they're called mem, nun, like mem has a double mem, nun, tzadik, pei, and chav, menatzbach. And it says that these 5 letters, menatzbach, they're the source of all letters. Because they're the source of taking energy and slicing it in a certain form, in a certain definitive way. The aim, they're like the godly cookie cutter that cuts the energy down into shapes and forms. And they're called the 5 powers. And where does it start? These 5 gevuros in Bina. The aim of Bina. Because what does Bina do? Bina is supposed to give design to the otherwise fluid light of Chachma, which is still fluid, which is still it's like a flash. It's not yet defined. Bina, sets the Bina clarifies the definitions. Hashayrish l'chol ha'ois is the machshava v'dibur. That's the shorish of all the letters of thought and speech. Ki yidua. Ubchinas bina, but bina is completely secondary and nullified, if you can say, to chachma, because these are just the words that accompany a concept. The main thing is the energy of the concept. Bina tafel agabe yorab is completely secondary to the lights of chachma. And therefore, b'yacholtam from chach. That's what, and the chachamim, they're rooted in chachma. B'yacholtam, it's their ability lahapach to change gam shoyresh hatzirufim. They can change it in bina. That's where they rerouted the tzirufim. They reset the code. Kulam mehepech lahepech from the one who made the code is able to go into the code and reset it. And being that they're rooted in a level of the divine that is pre-code, therefore it can switch it from one end to the other end. Where do we find that? Ki'inyan shanu moitzim Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa, Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa Sha'amar, who said one time his daughter came to him Gevald, she by mistake lit her Shabbos candles, or maybe I don't remember, it was a mistake, or no, I think it was a mistake, or maybe she didn't have, but I think it was a mistake. She used vinegar by mistake instead of oil. And she said, Gevald, it's not going to burn. And he said to her, Misha Yaimar, what did he say? He said, Misha Yaimar l'shemen v'yadlik, the one who says that oil shall burn. Who Yaimar, he should say l'chaimetz v'yadlik. He should say to vinegar, and vinegar will burn. And that's what happened. The vinegar burned, as if it was oil. And vinegar wasn't burned. And yes, it became fuel. Why? Because God set the system up that oil should have that, those should be able to burn. And if the Eibishter reorganizes the letters, then vinegar can burn. He can take the burning whatever nature and apply it to vinegar. It's not a choice because he can reset the whole code. But it's interesting. Reb Chanina ben Doisa uses the term Misha Amar, the one that said. Simply, okay, God said so, God. But if you're getting more into the nuance, the word me is actually, Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa was actually doing this reorganization. He was resetting the code. How was he doing it? Because he went up to Bina, and Bina is called me. Me is 50, Mem Yud 50, so Bina is me. And he went up to that level of Bina, and over there, which Bina, as we said before, is the source of where thoughts come from and words come from and definitive nature of everything. And he said, the me level that says, that till now set the code of creation that oil should burn, should now set temporarily over here that vinegar should burn. Mi ubchinas bina. The Yidua is known, that tzirufei oisias amamoros, that tzirufim of the letters, kulam mesham nimshuchu, all come from there, keniskaliel. Rabbi Chanina ratza lahapach hatzirufim. And Rabbi Chanina desired to change the combination, the shemen v'chaimet. See, Rabbi Chanina did it. And it takes the Alter Rebbe to tell you the manual of how Rabbi Chanina did it. He went up to the tzirufim, the sham and the chaimetz, gam b'shoyre shorsham b'bina. He says, what he's saying is he didn't manipulate down here to have, he went up to the source of sources, at the very, very origins of origins, where literally he went up to the underpinnings of existence and switched it over there. The chaimetz doilik, and because the vinegar and the oil's nature and characteristics doesn't start in this world. It's a long, long history as it manifests on all levels until it's rooted at the very beginning of the thought process of God, in which He set these letters in motion. This concept of oil burning in motion, which obviously in its source means phenomenal mystical ideas. When it comes down here, it comes in a physical form. Rabbi Chanina switched it all the way up to the very, very origins. And instead of the nature of the oil. Therefore he says, Misha Amar, whoever said, Misha Amar, that very source that said, for who bebina shenikra me, that's in Bina, that's called me. Shehu ba'alam amores, that's the one who sets. This is where all the utterances are come from. He's the speaker. You know, once something has been spoken, it's been set. So, but you go back to the speaker, and the speaker resets it. He says he rechanges the. And he should say the opposite. And he should say that vinegar should burn. This was Rabbi Chanina ben Dais. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, who one time had to go for Pidyon Shvuim, he was traveling to redeem someone from prison, and he came to a river, and he couldn't cross the river. The river was very intense, was very dangerous. So he told the river, split from me. The river gave him attitude. The river didn't want to. And Rabbi Pinchas said, if you're not gonna obey me, I'll decree that there should never be water over here. You'll be ice river. Everything wants to retain its existence, so the river had to obey. So how is the same idea? Because they're called the eyes and they're rooted in Chachma, which is above the lights of Emor, from where the systems, all systems begin. On one of my videos this week, on Sunday, I mentioned the same idea, one of the short daily videos, and I mentioned a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which it says, Shiva Dvarim b'Chacham, are 7 things in a Chacham, and Shiva b'Goylam, and there are 7, the Mishnah starts, Shiva Dvarim b'Goylam, no, Shiva Dvarim b'Chacham, v'Shiva Dvarim b'Goylam. Then it goes in to tell us what are the Shiva Dvarim b'Chacham, and then it says v'chilufeim b'Goylam. And the Golam is the opposite, meaning someone who's not fully developed, fully baked, fully a Golam is someone who's a wannabe tzaddik, a wannabe wise man, a wannabe chacham. The chacham is someone who's got there already. So he's not finished yet, so he's lacking in his maturity. So these are all indications of lacking. The chilufeim, he doesn't have these qualities, showing lacking of maturity. But I mentioned from the Sefer Or HaMoyer, from Rabbi Reuven Wolf of Zhitomir, I saw it in the Oiz V'Hadar Pirkei Avos. So he brings over there from Sefer Or HaMoyer, from Rabbi Reuven Wolf of Zhitomir, who brings a teaching from the Mizritcha Maggid, who the Maggid says, V'chilufeim, the power to do chalipim, the power to do any kind of exchange, like we say over here, the Rabbi Chanina ben Dais, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, who are able to switch around tzirufim and to switch, is begoilam, is if you have access to goilam, means to the raw material of creation. Goilam means that when you have the clay before it was forged and made into a keli. So if we can access the raw material of energy before it has been shaped and formed in various things, then from there you can switch everything around. Same idea. Just he was saying over here in the Maimer, me, that's the beginning already of the system. Goylam, he says, is chachma, which is pre-system. That's the goylam of everything. So really, in order to be able to change the nature of things, you have to get back to the yud. The yud is the point before it starts taking form. And there's a lot of Mamora Chazal that Chassidus brings, and it's brought in many other svarim on this idea, and that's the tzaddik. Since the tzaddik lives in the state of bittul to the Eibishter like Chachma, and the tzaddik himself will the point, how do you live in that level of Chachma? It means that you live beyond your nature. There's no such thing as my nature. Whatever God wants gets done because you're not fixed in a certain nature. Once you're fixed, you're fixed. A tzaddik is someone who says to Hashem, Hineni, whatever you need me to do. It's totally opposite of what he is all about. He'll do that too. If you need him to stretch it like this, why? Because the tzaddik's consciousness is on the level of Chachma. Chachma is it's Mesiras Nefesh. Totally whatever you want, Hashem. Mesiras Nefesh. Like Avram Avinu, his nature was chesed. Yet, when the Eibishter asked him to do the cruelest act, to kill his one and only son, he stood there with the knife, was ready to do it. Because whatever Hashem wants, he'll bend in any direction. Because his consciousness is on a level of chachma. That's why he can do miracles. That's the idea. And therefore, and for the same reason, they're able to take a day that's not supposed to be Yom Tiv. They're able to take a regular, just like they're able to switch the combinations of nature, they're also able to switch the system of Yom Tiv. If it was supposed to be Yom Tiv on Sunday, and they, by mistake, even unintentionally, made it on Tuesday, the switch is made. Even accidentally can know. There's a story with the Tzemach Tzedek famous story, it's a Geschmacka story, that there was a woman who had a child who the child couldn't talk. Yeah, the child couldn't talk. And the mother was wandering all over. Someone told her she'd go to the Tzemach Tzedek. And she came, she traveled, and this and that. I don't remember the details of the story, but she came in with her son to the Tzemach Tzedek. Why was it? I'm missing one little part of the story. Maybe if someone is listening to the shir will tell me. Well, I'm sure I can find the story in a minute on Google. But the story was somehow when she came in, she didn't tell the Tzemach. Somehow the information didn't get to the Tzemach Tzedek that the son was mute and never spoke a word. Tzemach Tzedek told the boy, "Go tell your mother," or maybe the mother waited outside and the boy went in, something like that. And Tzemach Tzedek said to the boy, "Go tell your mother that whatever, so and so." And for the first time, the kid walked out, and I think was he also lame? I think he couldn't walk normally, and he couldn't talk. And the kid walked off regularly, and he told the mother, and the mother almost fainted, or she fainted. And then the word was going around town that the Tzemach Tzedek, like, it's such a moifes. And people were excited. Wow, the Rebbe healed this kid, just like that. So when we got to the Tzemach Tzedek said, I never knew that he was lame and mute. But that's even a bigger chiddush. If he was able to do it without even knowing, that's the point, because he has such control over creation, the tzaddik, as we say over here, even if he makes a mistake, that's the way it is, because he said so. So that's what we're saying. Mutain, even by accident, litchois yoyma Pesach bezman achar, to be able to push off the day of Pesach to another day, and what's going to happen? And the lights of Chachma will not illuminate in Bina and through Bina into the light of Chesed on Pesach, which is we were supposed to be on Sunday, which is Chesed. It won't happen. It's only going to be the day that Beis Din decided. Even accident, even if they made a mistake. It will not happen on the day in which we're supposed to be Pesach. The reason the shliach of a person is literally like him. It's as if, and when you say as if means it is like Kodesh itself. That means God himself is inviting that day based on their kiddush. Whatever they say, that's the way it is. That you're the ones who decide. Atem dafke tikru. You're the ones who will call mikra kodesh, the calling of holiness. On the day that you will call, yelchu, they will go. V'loy b'yom achar, not on another day. V'loy al yedei achar, not through anybody else. El al yodam dafke through you. Because only they have the ability l'shanois to change mechoil lekodesh from weekday to holiness, or mekodesh lechoil, and from holy to weekday. Al derech hanal be'inya misha amal Hashem v'yadlik. Based on the same idea that we said earlier, that they can change the tzerufim, whoever said that from oil to vinegar and the like. Pirush amiti biyoser. This is a truer explanation, a truer pirush. B'mashakasav the zeminan mi kodesh. They're being invited from kodesh. The kodesh mazmin oisam. The kodesh invites them al yedei shliach, through the shliach. V'oz yitachen sheyeshlichu zois al yedei Sanhedrin. Then it makes sense that this shlichus is through the Sanhedrin, that they're being invited, which means the weekdays are being invited to kodesh. Going back to the beginning where the question was, are we inviting kodesh to them, or are we inviting the choil, the weekday, to kodesh? Now, if we say it's inviting the weekday, it makes sense that there is a shliach that's sent from kodesh to invite. Metamana, as we said before, aval and pirush the zminin mekodesh. If you're going to say the pirush of zminin mikodesh means shakodesh yavoy aleihem, that Kodesh to come to them, ein shaychus l'Sanhedrin b'zeh. There's no shaychus of the Sanhedrin to this. Ela dafke b'Shabbos inyan came. On Shabbos the inyan, because on Shabbos we find that Kodesh itself illuminates down on its own. In other words, that Shabbos, that Kodesh descends lower, that there's this galus of Kodesh, of Chachma, which includes in it the lights of Atik, of pleasure, and that it should illuminate in Ze'er Anpin, that happens on Shabbos. But that's on its own. That doesn't need an invite. Because who tells the Eibishter himself what to do? Hashem will come. The Ma'atzmai comes on his own. He said, that's why Shabbos is not dependent on Beis, and the Eibishter himself does it. Oh, so who are the ones that we're calling? We're calling the outsiders of the palace that they should come. For the reason mentioned above. Okay, so this was the biur. This is an explanation on what we learned earlier. Now there's another mimer, another biur, which further is going to further elaborate on the inyanim of the Zohar, the difference between the weekday and Shabbos. The difference between the weekday and that's mainly going to go back to the difference between weekday and Shabbos, between the Pnimius of Ze'er Anpin and the Chitzonius of Ze'er Anpin. Why the Chitzonius of Ze'er Anpin is called Choil, is called a weekday. And it's also going to continue explaining the Zohar far further than what we learned. The Zohar continues a whole story about Shabbos, about Rabbi Yehuda gives a whole Gavaldi explanation on Shabbos and why it's a day that Gehenim rests. It's a fascinating discussion. And I was going to learn this further, but I'm feeling a little tired. And maybe I just don't have, again, it's harder because we don't have a physical audience here. So I'm thinking of doing just now. The next class is going to be Tuesday. Because next week I want to finish this before Shavuos. And Thursday night is already going to be Yom Tov. Wednesday I give another shir. So let's do it on Tuesday. Be'ezus Hashem, Tuesday night, I'm going and I'm appointing nudges because I know that I'm going to get lazy. So I'm appointing amongst those that are listening, those that should harass me by Monday, tell me, tomorrow we're learning. Make sure. By Sunday, Monday, let me know. Because Monday I do the Parsha in my live class, and I'm going to be a little lazy, because it takes a lot out of me. So I need those to harass me and say, no, you have to finish the mimer. So please, on Tuesday, I want to teach this, but I'll need encouragement from the listeners. And hopefully we'll be able to learn 1, 2, 3. It's a little long, 4 pages. But it's geschmack. I'm feeling a little weak to be able to do this. The reason is because it's a whole new subject. It's not like a continuation of what we were just learning. It's getting into a whole different inyan. And so I'm going to stop now. And we're going to continue this Be'ezus Hashem next week. It's fascinating. So I didn't finish the whole thing in my preparation, but I got through quite a chunk. And it's really Gavaldig inyan here. Discusses this that I mentioned earlier about the 2 types of zivugim that there are, the zivug of Yaakov and Rachel versus the Yaakov and Leah versus the zivug of Rachel and Yisroel, which is the zivug of the weekday and Shabbos, and the difference between the unifications that are taking place and how it's affecting the neshamas that are being born. And then it's going into a whole long discussion about wine and Kiddush on Shabbos. And then it's going to go into a whole thing about Pesach. And somehow, I'm sure we're going to connect it to Shavuos. Let's do it, Be'ezus Hashem, next week, Tuesday. Everyone have a good Shabbos, and only the best. Oi.